All right. Welcome back into another edition of Jake's Takes. I am your host, Jake Masucci, and we got another edition of March Madness Action, March Madness Extravaganza Part 2. And I'm excited for this one. I got on my guys, Drew Comer and Jonah Cerone. Boys, how we doing today, man? It is March. I'm excited for this. I'm happy to have you on.
Thanks for having us, man. We got basketball starting tomorrow, on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then all week. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back. Was this the third time in the studio?
I think so.
So
It's crazy, man. I
Yeah.
mean, dude, March Madness is just like the best time of year. And I always like doing this big little extravaganza thing. You know, I threw 2 parts on last year, and I was like, hey, Oakland's in the tournament. Do I have time to do it this year? And I was like, hell yeah, I have time.
You got to.
Made time, made it happen. And I'm excited to have you boys here. So today on this episode, with Asher yesterday, we covered just pretty much the whole tournament and talked about almost every game. But for this one, we're going to be more focused Big East, Big Ten, and we'll get Drew and Jonah's thoughts more. So I'm excited for this one. We're going to start in the Big Ten. So I'm just going to lead off with Drew's team, Purdue, because they are really the story of the Big Ten. So, Drew, why don't you take it away? Talk to me about watching this team throughout the whole year and what you've thought of Purdue and how you think their bracket's going to kind of line up and how far they can make it.
So to start, I think that this team with Braden Smith and Lance Jones are the 2 difference makers. I know everybody likes to talk about Zach Edey, player of the year, obviously back-to-back years, but the guys that I've been watching all year are Braden Smith and Lance Jones, because last year one of the biggest problems, down the stretch was shooting. And, we really struggled in that tournament, obviously losing to a 16 seed. And then, but looking at the team this year, Edey's been dominant, putting up 24 and 11. Wouldn't expect anything else of him. And I know he gets fouled a lot. I've heard a lot of people complain about the fouls, and sometimes I can agree on it, but those are just ridiculous numbers. And then Braden Smith putting up 12, 5, and 7. Triple double watch every game just about. And he's just a playmaker. They're going to be playing a 16 seed again, and I'm expecting them to finally win it this year. They play the winner of Montana State and Grambling, who are 2 good teams for their conferences, but I just don't see them getting in the way of Purdue. And then obviously the other guys, Mason Gillis is shooting the best in the Big Ten from 3. I think he's around 48%, and Fletcher Lawyer struggled a little bit, but he steps up in the big games. So, if he can hit some shots, late, in March, then, that's really all Purdue needs from him as well.
Drew,
Jonah, you got anything to add here?
Yeah, I mean, Drew's the Purdue guy, so I just need a little refresher. Drew, can you give me the past 3-4 years NCAA tournament history?
Yeah, Jonah. All righty. Well, I guess in case people don't know, we lost to St. Peter's a couple years ago, or I guess 2 years ago now. That was back with Jaden Ivey. We lost to North Texas, was a 13 seed, and then obviously last year was the worst March Madness beat in history. So we're hoping to move past that this year and hopefully make the Final Four, go on a little run and quiet the haters.
Yeah, so personally, I'm a big fan of the phrase "history repeats itself." So I don't see Purdue as a Final Four team this year. I could see them making it to the Elite Eight if they really put everything together. If Edey gets his calls, but I'm not seeing Final Four.
I'll say something really quick and then we can get back to Big Ten here. But I'm not sure. You got a Purdue guy on here and an Oakland guy on here. And looking back at this season, I'm not sure how Xavier did playing against both these teams. So we want
to rebuilding here.
All right. Fair enough.
Yeah, I mean, I remember talking to Jonah about how hyped we were with Xavier last year going into the tournament. Yeah. And this year it was definitely a different story for the Musketeers. But, hey, Oakland's here to rep it this year for you. So root for the Grizzlies. But one thing I want to say on Purdue before we move on is I actually think they got a really tough matchup in that second round with whoever comes out of that 8-9, Utah State and TCU, because both those teams are very, very dangerous. They're both physical teams, and they're really tough. I talked about it a lot with Asher in that matchup. I love Utah State. Love, love, love. They were ranked in the top 25 all year, and they're just flat out outstanding. I actually have Utah State beating them in my bracket, beating Purdue, because Utah State is very, very talented. They were ranked 16 throughout the whole year, and I got to see them in the Cayman Islands tournament when I went with Oakland, and they dominated everybody, flat out destroyed them. They are a very, very for real team, and if I'm Purdue, especially with the Braden Smith going down late in that Big Ten tournament, like if he's coming off 2 days rest in that second round game, I'm not sure how comfortable he's going to be in that second round game. And I feel like a physical defense could get in his head. Drew, I wanted to get your opinion on that. Do you think a physical defensive team could stop this Purdue team, or do you think they'll be able to overcome that just because of how good Edey is?
So, I mean, just looking at the Big Ten this year, you saw a lot of that physicality, and we'll get to it with Illinois, Wisconsin, those two teams especially, and then Northwestern putting up some good fights, and Nebraska as well. There's a lot of top heavy teams in the Big Ten that played good defense, and there's a reason that Purdue got so many calls, because these guys have to play tough defense on, especially with Zach Edey there. Utah State, like you said, is a good team. But I don't think they have, they can match that Braden Smith and Zach Edey dynamic duo. Even with Braden Smith going down, he went down, against Michigan State in their first game in the quarterfinals, and then the semifinals, he ended up playing 30 plus minutes, so he was right back out there the next day, and he looked fine. It was just a little calf injury, I think. And now he's got almost, just the whole week to prepare, because they play on Friday. So I think that Matt Painter will do a good job this week in preparing them, for their first matchup, obviously. And then the quick turnaround, would be on Sunday. And I don't think, Utah State has that, they got to prepare for their first game in TCU. And obviously Purdue does too, with the 16 seed that they play. But, I'm sure the coaching staff has already started looking into the other 2 8-9 matchup, and we'll keep a close eye on that for sure.
How far do you have Purdue going?
I have Purdue going to my Final Four, but I have them losing to Kentucky.
Okay.
In my Final Four.
Got you. I just wanted to make sure we were figuring that out.
How do you think Edey would fare against Hunter Dickinson in a possible Sweet 16 matchup?
Hunter Dickinson's been good. I know we played Arizona earlier this year. They have a couple good bigs on that team. So I think until Purdue would see UConn potentially, who, is just outstanding and have, just a great talented team. I don't think there's a single big out there that Edey can't match up with. Personally, I think that you put him in the post, every team has to double team him, and it just leaves guys like Fletcher Lawyer and Lance Jones and Mason Gillis, open for some shots. And as long as he's not turning the ball over, I think that Purdue can really, get far in this tournament. And like I said, with that Braden Smith year, he's got another year on him. He's a sophomore now, and he's, progressed a lot. So
for sure. All right, let's move into some of the other Big Ten matchups. For me, the next team I kind of want to go through is Illinois, just because of how talented they've been this year. So, Jonah, if you want to start this one out, talk to me about what you've seen from Illinois so far this year and how far you see them going in this tournament.
I'm going to put them on the Jonah Cerone fraud alert.
Ooh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, they cannot win against a tournament team. They've lost to Marquette, Tennessee, Purdue, Northwestern, Nebraska. They don't win quality games. So to expect them to win 4 straight games against good teams, I don't see it happening. I would be amazed if they won 2 straight games and made it to the Sweet 16, to be honest.
Fair enough. I kind of like that take, not gonna lie. It's not a take you see very often. Actually, I think a lot of people are looking at this Morehead State game as like maybe an iffy game for them. But I mean, I think it's going to be interesting to see like if they can keep up this hot play from the Big Ten tournament. Drew, what do you think about Illinois going into this tournament?
So I have to completely disagree. I think what I saw from Illinois in the Big Ten tournament, I think that Terrence Shannon, I know he had his problems earlier in the year, but he just scored the most points in a Big Ten tournament stretch in the Big Ten tournament history. And I know it hasn't been around very long, but he put up 30 plus every game, including a 40 plus point performance. And they have guys around him, Marcus Domask, Luke Goody, Coleman Hawkins. I mean, they're a deep team. Underwood does a great job in coaching, and I know we haven't seen the success from Big Ten winners or tournament winners the past couple of years, but I think that this Illinois team is legit. I have them going to my Elite Eight and losing to UConn. I think that if they run into a team like Iowa State or Drake, obviously Iowa State is a great team as well, but I think that this Illinois team is legit. I got to see them, and I've watched a lot of them this year, and they're very talented, very well coached. And Terrence Shannon, you look at guys that can lead teams, the main guys, and I think that he's one that can do it. We just saw it, the past couple of days in the Big Ten tournament. So I think they're legit.
Yeah. I mean, completely. With Illinois, I think it's tough because especially from, I think it was 2 years ago now when Iowa had that team with Keegan Murray, you see like these teams that can get so hot in the Big Ten tournament or any tournament whatsoever, win their tournament, and then they're playing a tough team in the first round, and there they go, and then everybody's bracket's busted. It really depends on like what can happen, because like that Iowa team everybody fell in love with, and I remember seeing like so many brackets just busted after that one. You can get exhausted after winning a tournament like that and tend to overlook your opponent. I feel like if they can get past a team like Morehead State, who's going to be a little scary for them, then I do see them going to the Sweet 16. I actually have them losing to Iowa State. I think Iowa State's really talented. Talked about that a lot on part one, but Illinois is a really, really tough team. Oakland actually played them early in the season, and it was a really, really close game. Like Domask is an unbelievable shooter. Terrence Shannon is unreal. I love Ty Rogers coming in there from old Michigan guy, in high school, and he's just a great athlete. And they're going to be scary for sure. But I think the clear 1-2 that I want to talk about in the Big Ten is probably Purdue and Illinois. And both those teams are definitely going to make a run in March, hopefully. So I kind of want to, for the next group of Big Ten, just to make it a little easier, let's just group them together. Okay. So it's Michigan State, Nebraska, Wisconsin, Northwestern. Okay. Jonah, I'm going to have you start here. Just pick one that you want to center on, that you like the most or dislike the most, and talk to me about how they can move on in the tournament, or if you just think they're complete frauds. Talk to me about it.
I mean, is it allowed to put a whole conference on fraud alert, Jake? Is that allowed here?
You think the whole conference is just overrated? Probably.
I mean, Jake, we had this podcast last year. What did we say?
Yep,
The Big Ten always busts in the
this
tournament.
Is what you said
what
last year. This is what you said.
They always bust,
and they didn't do well. It's true. It's true.
Right. The Big Ten runs these big true centers like Zach Edey, and when you're doing that, at some point you're going to get outshot. So it's hard to win, 4 straight games in the tournament. And then along with that, this year I feel like we just don't even have quality Big Ten teams. We got Northwestern. They've lost 3 of their last 4. They only have 1 top 25 win. We got Wisconsin. There's that one stretch of the season where they lost 4 straight to Nebraska, Purdue, Michigan, and Rutgers. Yep. Not exactly the most impressive losses ever.
Yep.
I like Nebraska a little bit just because it's their first time here. Maybe they'll catch some energy, win round 1, and give the 1 seed a shot in round 2. They got that one guard. Help me out with his name again. What is his?
Keisei Tominaga.
Yes, yes. The people are calling him the Japanese Steph Curry or something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, I like Nebraska. I think they have a lot of energy, but overall, I can't imagine. There's a chance we may not see the Big Ten in the Elite Eight. I don't think that's crazy to say.
Yeah, Drew, go ahead. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm with Jonah on the rest of the Big Ten teams. I love Purdue and Illinois. The rest of them, I'm not huge on. I mean, we just saw Wisconsin have a nice tournament run, beating Purdue and then playing Illinois close. But I actually have Wisconsin losing their first game to James Madison. James Madison has just had a ridiculous season, and I
Yeah,
think that's one of my big upset picks. Northwestern is hurt with Ty Berry going down. Boo Booey is their leader, and he's going to have to do a lot for them. But they've been hurt down the stretch, and like Jonas said, they have lost a couple games late here. And then Nebraska, I guess out of the rest of them, Nebraska is my favorite. As much as I hated watching, Purdue lose to them early in the year on the road, I think it was by like 15. But Tominaga he's fun to watch, and he brings energy and he hits big shots, and he's just one of those guys that's like you got to look out for him. He can get hot really quick. And then yeah, so those, and then Michigan State, they were, ranked preseason number 4, and we've all seen what's happened with them. They lost to James Madison early on, and it kind of, you know, foreshadowed the rest of the season for them. And they didn't even hit 20 wins this year, and they got kind of saved by, that Baylor win early on and the Indiana State win. But they're going to have Tyson Walker and AJ Hogard and some of their older guys, Malik Hall, really keep them in games. And if they get past that first game, I think they could give Carolina a fight, but they got to get past that first game,
yeah.
which is tough to do as a 9 seed. So
I
I
will
think,
say-
go ahead,
Go
Joe.
ahead.
I was just saying, I think these other 4 teams are the fraud teams in the Big Ten, but I think Purdue and Illinois can definitely make a run here.
I'd like to add to my list of teams I like in the Big Ten. I actually like Michigan State. I think they have a really good defense. I know they haven't put the wins together, which, I mean, it's hard to argue against the wins and losses, but they have a really good defense, a top 15 defense, and their offense, if it clicks, I mean, I think they'll have a shot against North Carolina. Plus, you got the whole Izzo storyline. He always does well in March, but right now, people are calling for his head a little bit. I think his team's going to rally around him, and I think they could really give North Carolina a shot.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I completely agree with everything you guys said about those 4 teams because Michigan State, I actually have in my Sweet 16. I have them beating North Carolina because I think they can do it. And like I see a little bit of fraud alert in North Carolina, just a little bit. I'm not going to go completely there because they are awesome and I feel like a little undervalued this year. But I think Michigan State just what I talked about with Asher is like their scouting is unbelievable. And we saw it firsthand at Oakland. They were just ready for us completely. And we saw it the game before they played us in Baylor. They were ready for Baylor completely and completely destroyed them. Like if you see a Michigan State like that, they're a very, very scary team. And I think Izzo can push the right buttons and get them to that point. That's why I'm higher on Michigan State. The others, like, the only other team that I have in the second round for Big Ten is Nebraska, just because it's 8-9 matchup. The game's up in the air, and I really liked what I've seen from Nebraska throughout this year. But I don't think they're a Sweet 16 team or anything like that. The rest of the Big Ten is just like meh. Wisconsin got hot for the Big Ten tournament, but they got a tough 12 seed to deal with. And then Northwestern sitting at a 9 seed and continued to play worse and worse and worse. I liked Northwestern a lot at the beginning of the year. It just fell off for me completely. So, looking at the rest of the Big Ten, I get what you're saying, Jonah. With a lot of people probably overvalue it completely, thinking it's like the top tier conference. But I mean, it's clearly the Big 12, and everybody else is just watching. And then ACC is probably up there too. But I mean, the ACC wasn't even great either. So looking at that, I mean, I just think the Big Ten a little bit overrated. But I wanted to talk about these 6 teams. So you guys got anything to add on these teams before we go to break?
Yeah, I just, talking about Michigan State, I think that, we saw their little run last year. They ended up losing to, Jake, help me out.
They lost to,
They lost to Kansas State.
Yeah, Kansas State. Yeah,
Um,
Marcus
with
Norwell.
Noel. I think if they can put together a run like that, I know AJ Hogarth had an elite run last year. I know Tyson Walker was huge this year. He had a little bit of a slump later on in the year, but they're a veteran heavy team with Malik Hall
Yeah,
and Xavier Booker is their young center, and I think that if they can play defense like Jonah said, and if they can hit some shots, I think that they're Tom Izzo being the head coach, and Tom Izzo in March, you never know what to expect with that team. And then
exactly.
he's been here 26 straight years, which is tied for the third longest ever, or I think it is the third longest ever now. um, but you just never know with these Tom Izzo teams, and I'd love to see them make a run. And I think they, like we talked about, I think they definitely could get past Mississippi State and then Carolina, but they gotta play like they did against Baylor.
For
That
sure.
that type of team we need to see from them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. All right, well, we're gonna go to a little break, and once we get back, we're gonna go through some Big East teams, and then we're gonna talk about just who we like in the tournament. Some upset picks, stuff like that, and give you our Final Four predictions.
Hello, hello. This is Giovanni Mosheri. You might have heard me a couple times on Jake's Takes. I am the sports media director of Oakland University's campus radio station, WXOU, and I've been the host for about 2 years of a weekly sports show called The Jomo Show, where we cover all of Oakland University athletics, including a weekly update on scores and highlights, as well as interviews with athletes or those otherwise involved in athletics. You can listen to The Jomo Show live on WXOU Thursdays at 6, or you can tune in to me afterwards on Spotify. It's The Jomo Show.
All right, welcome back into the show, and we're going to switch over to the Big East. Okay, Big East was a big topic last year because they were really, really good, and it's kind of the story of the tournament a little bit. So I want to keep it going. Jonah's team is in the Big East, so we're going to start with Jonah here. I want to just group the three teams together. Okay, so it's UConn sitting at a 1 seed, Marquette sitting at a 2 seed, Creighton sitting at a 3 seed. So talk to me about these three teams, what you've seen from them, and what you expect from them too.
Yeah, I mean, I'm big on the Big East. I think they were the best team in the tournament last year. I think that's.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's too much debate to that. I think the conference got better this year. I think just in a way that almost hurt the conference, which teams just beating each other and they got a little bit robbed. I think that's fair to say, with only getting 3 teams in. But I think UConn, Creighton, and Marquette could all go far. When you look at those 3 teams, you look at good defenses, good guard play, and some good centers, which is just a great combination across the board.
Yep.
UConn, you got Donovan Clingan, 7'2", 280 pounds, just running the middle. They got Tristan Newton averaging 15.6 assists a game. Cam Spencer, 14 points, 3 assists a game. All 5 of their starters are averaging 10. I mean, it's just one of the most complete teams. You only get a team like this every couple of years. They've won 21 of their last 22. They're the defending champs. They have a hard road, but, I mean, it's hard to see someone pulling off the upset. And then we got Marquette. Tyler Kolek is coming back. He's been injured. That's why their UConn game probably would have been a little closer in the Big East Championship if he was there. So when he comes back, that's going to make a great difference. They got a great coach. The only reason I'm not completely sold on Marquette is I think their defense is a little iffy, and that's a huge factor in March is always defense. But I love Creighton. They have great guard play. They have an amazing center who I think will be able to go toe-to-toe with Zach Edey when they meet. They have one – people don't know this, but they've won the top defenses in the country, a top 15, arguably top 10 defense, and then along with the offense, which everyone knows is amazing. So I'm huge on Creighton. Everyone's huge on UConn. And then I think Marquette has a pretty easy path, so I see them making it to the Elite Eight. But I think their defense is a little bit of a liability.
That's fair. That's fair. Drew, how about you? What are your takes on the Big East?
Yeah, I gotta agree with Jonah for the most part here. I think UConn, those 3 guys that Jonah touched on are just incredible. I have UConn in my championship game, and the only team that I can see giving them fits is really Auburn. I'm huge on Auburn, but they might run into Illinois if they make the Elite Eight. But I think that UConn is complete. They have a lot of guys returning. They have that experience from last year of winning it all. and I think that team is just one to look out for. And then the other two with Creighton and Marquette, I think Iguodaro for Marquette is one of those guys that can also just help them. Even if Kolek isn't 100%, I think that he can just be that rock down in the middle. I know when Purdue played Marquette, he gave us a little bit of fits, and I know he does that to a lot of teams. And then Creighton is just unbelievable. A 3 seed, and what an incredible year they had. And I think that if they run into Tennessee or Purdue, either one, I think that that's a team that I wouldn't be surprised if they beat either of them, as a 3 seed. And then in terms of the snubs, I think, watching Selection Sunday, I think that, St. John's was right there. I think Seton Hall was right there. I think that those two teams you could have argued should have made it. And then on the flip side, I wasn't big on Virginia getting in. So I think that it's a little bit of a disappointment only having 3 teams in there, but I think that the 3 teams they have, any one of them could go win it all, on any given day. So
Yeah, I mean, to add on, like, they're 3 juggernauts, man. Like, they're awesome. I mean, there's a reason they're sitting at 1, 2, and 3. Like, they have been crazy all year, and UConn's the story of it. UConn clearly best team in college basketball right now. The last I checked, they're sitting at like second in offense and like 16th in defense, which is just flat out ridiculous, And Jonah, you mentioned all their guys. Like, all their guys are just flat out awesome. Tristan Newton, I talked about all year, just how he can do everything. Donovan Klingen's the same way, dude. And I got them in my Final Four. Like, they're just unbelievable. They're story themselves. Talking about Marquette and Creighton, these are 2 teams I haven't really talked about as much, but Marquette has really impressed me. It's kind of shocking to me that they were playing so well against UConn. Like, they started out that game very strong in that Big East championship game without Kolek. And Jones is a very good scorer for them, can do a lot. And I think Marquette's a little bit scary. Some of the stuff, like some of the games that they have coming up, like to get there, I don't love it because, first of all, Oakland's in their path, which wouldn't be a good thing. Okay, Oakland's in their path, or Kentucky. And Kentucky's really talented. They got that offense that would be very tough for them. And the main thing that I think team that will give them trouble is Florida. Florida is a very, very scary team out of the SEC. I really like Florida, and playing them in the second round, that's a really, really tough game. I actually have them winning this game and getting to that Sweet 16 range, but that's when you're running into either Texas Tech, Kentucky, or Oakland, whoever you want to put out of that game. And, like Texas Tech or Kentucky, that's a really, really tough game. It just is. And I don't know if they could get past that point to me, but I think, being a Sweet 16 team is really, really good for the Big East. So, like sitting at that 2 seed, like they're not a Final Four team, but they're really, really good. Talking about Creighton, I don't think Creighton's going to go too far. And I love their bigs. I love what they have. But, Asher and I talked about their first round opponent, Akron. Akron was also in the Cayman Islands with us. Akron is a really, really good team. Really good. I did the negatives of Akron, talking about the MAC and how it was down a little bit in part 1. I talked about that. But there's very high positives on Akron too. They were really, really good. They were in first in the MAC the whole season, and then fell to second at the end of the year, and then dominated the MAC tournament. They're a really, really tough 14 seed to have. So I think that's going to be an interesting game. And then you got the winner of South Carolina and Oregon, who are both teams that are super hot. Oregon went off in that Pac-12 tournament and are a really dangerous team. And South Carolina, throughout the whole year, were dominant. It's a first-year coach that came into that program and took them to new heights. They were great. So whoever wins that game is going to be a really tough matchup. And I just don't see Creighton getting out of that. It's 2 tough games. I just don't see them winning those back-to-back. Well, it wouldn't be back-to-back, but, like 2 days. And I just don't know if they can get that far. I think a lot of people like Creighton this year. I'm one of those guys that are against Creighton there. Jonah, what do you think about that take there? Because I know you're higher on Creighton. You have them in your Final Four. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. Put the players aside. You just look at the team rankings. You're looking at a fast-paced elite offense from Creighton, and then one of the top defenses in the country. I mean, that's the recipe for a national championship team, which
100%.
I don't think is out of the question for them. And then, I mean, I think just watching him, like I remember when they played Xavier, like when you watch him, it was just a different level. It's like watching UConn in a way. Like it felt like just a different level of basketball. So I see him as a serious national champion contender. I don't think they're going to have a problem getting to the Sweet 16 at all. I love this Creighton team.
Fair. Drew, you got anything to add?
No, I mean, I'm a little bit higher on Creighton than you are, but maybe not as high as Jonah. I think that they're talented, but I think that, if they ran into Tennessee, that Tennessee team is good. I love that Tennessee team, and I know you do too. So, like I said, I wouldn't be surprised with either of these three teams from the Big East if they made a run and won it all. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Big East, like, yes, they got slighted a little bit in tournament, but like they brought in their three powerhouses, so they're definitely going to be dangerous for sure. Okay, so I got a couple questions for you guys. We're going to talk about some contenders. We're going to talk about some upsets. So let's start with the contenders here. So Drew, I'm going to start with you. Okay, if you had to pick two teams that you really think are going to go super far, and you're all in on this year, talk to me about these two teams that you see that are just going to be dangerous in this tournament.
So to start with, I got to go with Kentucky. I mean, you're bringing off two potential lottery picks off the bench with Reed Shepherd and Dillingham, and let alone like that is a very lethal offense, one of, if not the best offense in the country. And then Cal Perry obviously is a great head coach, and we've seen him make the runs in the tournaments before. I know they're playing Oakland first round, but I do have Kentucky winning the whole thing on my bracket. And I think that as a 3 seed, they have to beat some teams. They would have to play Marquette and Houston, and then obviously whoever comes out of the Midwest side in the Final Four. But I think they can do it. I think if that offense can stay hot, I know they're a little bit younger this year, but I think that having those two guys alone, coming off the bench and doing what they've been doing all year, I mean, it's unbelievable. And then my other team I got to go with is Tennessee. I've watched Tennessee a lot this year, and Dalton Connect transferring in has just like taken that team to the next level. And then they got like Josiah Jordan-James has been good. Vescovi's had a little bit more of an off year, but I mean, Dalton Connect is the headline on that team. And if it weren't for, I know you did a podcast on, if it weren't for Zach Edey, that would be my pick for Player of the Year. I love Dalton Connect. I think he's a great shooter. He can give that team, the buzz, the energy that they need. And he's just a bucket getter and can play defense on the other end. So I like that Tennessee team. So I got to go with Kentucky and Tennessee as my two watch out for teams.
Yeah, before we get to yours, Jonah, I just want to respond to the Kentucky piece. I feel like it's a good segue to talk about Kentucky-Oakland, okay? This game, just saying, is going to be close. I hope everybody knows that, okay? With Oakland, I mean, I've seen it over and over again. People struggle with the zone when you don't see it every night. It's just the truth. And Kentucky is one of those teams that like to turn over the ball a lot. They do. They turn the ball over the ball all the time. And I get a lot of people say it's because the SEC plays a quicker style. And I get that completely. But also, they don't guard. They really don't. Reed Shepherd's the only one that gives a crap when he guards. And I love Reed Shepherd. I'm going to talk about him in an NBA draft podcast because he is great. Okay, he's checks all the boxes as an NBA prospect. And they have all the talent in the world. They're one of the best offensive teams, like you said, but they don't guard. And to me, those teams that don't guard can't win championships. They can't make it to the Sweet 16. They can't make it to those Elite Eight stages. And I'm just saying, I would rather trust a team that's veteran-driven and know how to win close games. We're 8-1 when games are decided between 5 points. They know how to win close games. They know how to do that stuff. We got Horizon League Player of the Year, Trey Townsend. We have two shooters that could go off for 7 threes if you want them to, Jack Golke and Blake Lampman. It's a perfect upset team. I'm just saying. And I think that matchup is really tough for Kentucky. Looking at the rest, I like them making it to the Sweet 16, somewhere around that range. But I just don't know if this team is talented enough to like make it to the promised land, for say. I like that you're thinking outside the box and trying to pick somebody else. Like I was trying to do that too, but I just don't know if Kentucky has that, for say. What do you have to respond to that?
Yeah, I just want you to know, like when they play Oakland, I'll be rooting for Oakland. Like Oakland, I mean,
I appreciate
you're my guy. I'll be rooting for Oakland. I think, like you said, that zone that Oakland runs. I know Michigan State saw it, and I watched that game pretty closely. And then the Horizon League tournament, I watched them pretty closely. But if you don't see something like that every day, I mean, it can give teams fits. And Kentucky, who relies on that offense, I think Oakland's going to have to do a really good job on closing out because they have shooters that will go lights out as well on that team. But if they do get past Oakland, I think that team can just get hot so quickly and make a run, and that's why I have them as a 3 seed winning it all. I know a lot of people are picking UConn and Houston and Purdue and Carolina and the 1 seeds, and then I touched on Tennessee, but this 3 seed we saw a 5 seed in the championship last year with San Diego State, and that just goes to show. I mean, even Florida Atlantic was a 9 seed in the Final Four. Yep. So just because you're a 1 seed, just because you're a 2 seed, doesn't mean that you're making the Final Four or the championship, either of those. And I think Kentucky, if I had to choose one outside of the top 2 seeds, obviously that's my team.
Jonah, who do you got? Kentucky or Oakland? Before we get to your contenders.
Oh, Oakland. Give me the Grizzlies.
Yes,
Give me the Grizzlies. No one does less with more than John Calipari. And then, not to mention, you're not just looking at a bad defense, you're looking at statistically the worst defense in college basketball. We're giving up 84.2 points a game. Like, let that sink in for a moment. 84 a game. And then you got, I mean, Jake and I were both at the Oakland Xavier game, so I got to see them firsthand what Oakland's got. They hit you with that. I mean, they went to our house. And it wasn't like a lot of times when a Horizon team pulls off an upset against a Big East team or, conferences like that and an upset happens. It's like the team gets hot and, one team just doesn't come to play right from the bigger conference and the upset happens.
Yep.
In this game, they went to our place. They played their zone. And it wasn't like, oh, they pulled off the upset. It was like the whole game they were in control. They looked like they were just better than us, So I love this Oakland team. And teams with bad defenses never do anything in March. So I got Oakland over Kentucky, 100%.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love that. 2v1, Drew. 2v1. But
that's okay.
It's all right. It's all right.
I'm rooting for Oakland. Like I said, I'm rooting for them. I've been rooting for them all year, and I would be thrilled if they won. But looking at it from a logic perspective, I know that they're one of the worst defenses in the country, but like sometimes you see in the NBA, it doesn't matter if you have the worst defense.
Fair.
Because if you can score 100 points and give up 85, then it doesn't matter.
It's true.
I mean,
it's true.
The NBA isn't win one to advance, but
okay, Jonah, let's go to your contenders. If you had to pick 2 teams, talk to me about those 2 teams.
Yeah, I mean, we'll leave UConn out of it.
Yeah,
everyone knows they're like that. They're like that. Then I like Houston. I love defenses. I think they have enough offense to get them there. We talked about my love for Creighton. I think they're a Final Four team, possibly the national champion. And then I also like Baylor. I mean, Jake, Drew, you guys both know this. I love a good zone defense.
Yeah.
Baylor's got one of the most interesting defenses you've ever seen. They almost will throw out like a man-zone hybrid.
Yep.
They have their no-middle offense, which is basically built off of different principles. If he dribbles here, you do this with your body. It's fascinating to watch. I encourage everyone to watch a Baylor game and just like soak in the defense because it's honestly like mesmerizing if you enjoy defense.
It is.
They're a big team. They remind me a lot of that Texas Tech team that went to the Final Four back in 2019, I think it was, or went to the championship.
Yep.
They're long. They're athletic. They have a defense teams haven't seen. So I like Baylor a lot. So those would be my four. That'd be my final four right there.
Like it. Yeah. I mean, I'm in the same boat with Baylor. I have them in my final four too. They run a lot of zone. They run 80% of their defense's zone. That was a team that we thought we were probably going to play. So we did not want to see them because they're a really, really hard scout. And that's why I have so much respect for Michigan State, partly because they were so ready for Baylor and then they were so ready for us. And we're a hard scout too because we run like 80 plays or something crazy. It's ridiculous. And, those are hard scouts to have. A team that runs a lot of plays and runs a lot of zone. That's really, really tough. So, that's why I respect Michigan State. That's why I respect Baylor so much because Baylor's awesome. They really competed in that Big 12. And I really think it's going to be fun, man. Like, I'm so pumped for this. The contenders are flat out crazy. So let's move into upsets. Okay. I want to get some of your upsets. Let's just go with one team. Okay. Just the one upset that you guys like. So, Jonah, I'll start with you. Jonah, who's your number one upset that you got?
The Oakland Grizzlies.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love it. We already touched on that, so we don't really have to keep going on that unless you got anything to add. But, Drew, what about you? Who's your number one upset going into this?
I gotta go with McNeese.
Okay.
They're a 12 seed, but they're the scariest 12 seed I see on the board. And I was watching couple videos on them, and their new head coach is his first year, and he had a press conference before he started, and they had 24 plus losses last year, and he said,
Will Wade, baby.
And he said, I'm going to turn this from a 24 plus loss to a 24 plus win team. And not only did he have 24 plus, he had 30 plus. It was a ridiculous run they went on. They won their tournament. And looking at Gonzaga is a good team, but I thought they were going to be a 7 seed. I didn't think they were going to be, up there to be a 5 seed. And so really looking at this for me, I could see McNeese just like, I don't even think it could be close. I think they could beat them by 10 plus. I mean, Gonzaga is a good team. That's a good program. And they've made the most consecutive Sweet 16s. I think it's up to maybe 5 or 6 in a row, maybe more at this point. But that McNeese team would scare me if I'm a 5 seed. And that's what Gonzaga has to run into. So I think that's a tough draw. And that's my upset pick.
Yeah, McNeese got Shahada Wells, who's their leading scorer, 17.8 points a game, 4.5 rebounds, 4.8 assists. And then Christian Shumay are the main guys. Christian Shumay is their big 11.9 points, 9.5 rebounds. Those are their two main guys, and they shoot 38.8% from three. That is a team that has upside potential, and they're flat out scary, 100%. Asher and I talked about this a lot in the last pod because it's a very interesting matchup. Everybody's on McNeese, and why not? Will Wade, unbelievable coach, put him to 30 wins, and he's a gangster. If you watch that college basketball, what was it? What was that documentary called? I can't think of it right now, but it was about paying players and stuff before it was legal and stuff. But if you watch him, that's what they called him. They called him the gangster because he'd bring in these people. He brought in Naz Reid for, I think it was like $1 million or something before. But he came into this program and was like, this is my second chance. And he flat out ran with it. 30-3 is an unbelievable record. And they're going to play Gonzaga really, really close in this. And it's going to be an exciting game. What I came down to is that I trust Mark Few too much to lose this game. And that's just because of also they have Ryan Nembhard, and I also really like Graham Ike. They're big, who's also really good, 16.7 rebounds. And Ryan Nembhard's awesome. He was awesome at Creighton last year, moved over to Gonzaga this year. And yes, his numbers are down a little bit. His three-point shooting's down a little bit, but he's still doing it all. 12 points, 4.1 rebounds, 6.7 assists. I like him a lot. I think this is going to be one of the most fun games of the first round of the tournament. But I agree with you. McNeese is a very popular upset pick, and it's going to be a great game. Jonah, you got anything to add to this game?
I don't.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's going to be a good game there. And I think McNeese is a really good pick at an upset if you're looking for one of those upset teams that could make the Sweet 16.
Jake, I gotta hear your upset pick. Who's your big
upset
one?
pick? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you already know.
Yeah, no, I talked about this
It's
on
not-
the last 2 pods, but I mean, like you heard me talk about Oakland. They're not my upset pick. My upset pick is Charleston. Charleston's awesome. Okay, and they're playing Alabama here. This Alabama Charleston game is going to be ridiculous. There might be over 43-point attempts in this game. Like, these teams shoot threes all the time, and it's unbelievable. So I think you could see this game being in the hundreds almost, because these teams can light it up from 3. I'm really hoping that they do. And Charleston's just a really, really fun team, and they have been for a while. And I mean, if you would listen to any past pods, my 2 overrated teams going into March Madness were Kentucky and Alabama. And that's because they both don't play defense, and they both rely on just their offense, and they can get cold. That can happen to those teams. So that's what I think could happen to a team like Alabama. And I thought Charleston was put in a perfect position. It is going to be a crazy high scoring game. I feel like even if Alabama's not hitting their threes, they're going to be able to score on this Charleston team. But if Charleston's hitting their threes, dude, they're the perfect upset team to have. I love Charleston in this position, so I got to go with them there.
I have Charleston winning my first round matchup as well. I like that take for sure.
Yeah, no, they're definitely a scary team, and I'm looking forward to that for sure. All right, let's get to our Final Four predictions. Okay, let's get into it. So, Drew, Jonah, you kind of mentioned your Final Four. Just say it quickly for me, so I can kind of set the stage for where you'll go for your championship predictions as well.
Yep. I got UConn, Baylor, Houston, Creighton.
Okay, Drew.
And then I have UConn, Arizona, Kentucky, and Purdue.
Okay, and then Jonah, what would you have for your national championship game and your champion?
You know, it's a little boring, but I'm going to go UConn, Houston.
Houston, like it.
With UConn winning.
Okay.
So pretty basic, but I think it's the most realistic.
Yeah, fair enough. Why do you think UConn, if UConn were to play Houston in that scenario, okay, what do you think gives UConn the advantage over Houston, and why do you think they can get this repeat?
Yeah. I mean, if UConn makes it out of their region, which I expect they will, that already means they're better than, Iowa State, right?
Yep.
And Iowa State just smoked Houston.
Iowa State's awesome.
Yeah, they're incredible. UConn's got a hard region. I'm expecting them to make it out of it. I think they're just by far the best team in the country. They've won 21 out of their last 22. I mean, anyone who's seen them play knows what they're about. They're just a complete basketball team, good on both ends of the court. Houston's got an elite defense. I think UConn's offense edges out Houston a little bit. I think that's what gives them the edge is the offense. But yeah, it'd be a good, probably low-scoring game, low 60s. UConn wins it. That's what I would predict.
I like it. All right, Drew, what do you got?
My championship game is UConn and Kentucky, and then, like we touched on, I have Kentucky winning it all. So, I've talked a lot about Kentucky, but UConn is a really good team as well. And like Jonah just mentioned, I wouldn't be surprised to see any of the 1 seeds in there, any of the 2 seeds in there. Yeah. And then, there's a lot of teams that range from 3 to 4 as well. Like Auburn is a really good team that you could see in there. But the ones that I have are UConn and Kentucky, and I have Kentucky winning it.
So if it were UConn and Kentucky, what do you think Kentucky does better that just gives you the edge over UConn?
I think both of those offenses are elite offenses, 2 of the best in the country. But I think Kentucky, just their head coach, Calipari, I know he's had a rough last couple of years, but he has, he's one of the best college basketball coaches, active college basketball coaches right now, in my opinion. I know Jonah's shaking his head, but I think that just how do you have 2 guys coming off the bench that are projected lottery picks putting up the numbers that they are, and they're young. Dillingham is a freshman, and I can't remember if Reed Shepherd what year he is, but both of them are just ridiculous. And I think that high-scoring offense, I think if they can put up 80-plus points on UConn, that I think their defense can hold up just enough. I think it'd be a really close game. So that's why.
For sure.
I would love to see a Calipari lottery pick to championship ratio stat. I would love to see that. It's got to be the worst in the history of college basketball.
Might just be Anthony Davis, man. That might be it.
That Anthony Davis year, yeah.
Yeah, the Anthony Davis year was the year for them. And, that's what I trace back to Kentucky. They had the best defense in college basketball that year. And this year they don't. And that's why I was low on them. And that was part of my take for that. But, I respect you put Kentucky all the way. We talked about that earlier. Like the 1 seed, it's not always the 1 seed that we expect. So going to my picks. Okay, my final 4, if you guys remember, it was Tennessee and I'm trying to let me pull it up real quick. I got it on here. It was Tennessee and Houston. It was UConn and Baylor. Those were the 2 matchups. Okay, I have Baylor beating UConn. And the reason why I think Baylor can beat UConn here is because of Scott Drew. Okay, Scott Drew is a great, great coach. And Dan Hurley is also a great, great coach. But Baylor can run things on the defensive end that could really get UConn out of their sets. UConn runs a lot of long sets that kind of build into something else. And I feel like with Baylor's zone, it'll just get them out of their offense completely. And UConn hasn't seen much zone this year. They just haven't. So I think Baylor could definitely confuse them with that action and could definitely get some scoring going. So I think Baylor would just be a really confusing matchup for UConn and something that they haven't seen before. And that's why I'm taking Baylor there. Houston, Tennessee. I have Tennessee in this one. Tennessee beating Houston. Tennessee is so good. Drew talked about it. He put the nail in. Like, it's just perfect. I love Connect. I love Ziegler. I love all the guys that they have. And they have so much offense that can be like, it's just so great to watch. Like, I love watching Tennessee play basketball. And Connect, to me, it's clearly the player of the year, if not for Edey having the monster year that he had. And I just think Tennessee would just be a little too much for Houston. And what happens to Houston in the NCAA tournament is they start to get really physical with their defense and fouls get called on them. And this will happen in the Final Four, I think. And I think that's why Houston can't win the championship. I love Jamal Sheed. I think he's an excellent player. That's the reason why I'm putting them in the Final Four. I just don't think it'll be enough against a talented team like Tennessee. And then Tennessee, Baylor, in the championship, I got Tennessee. And that's just because I think the offense is just a little too much. I think Baylor would have shown everything that they could in that UConn game, and Tennessee would be ready for that and be able to adjust. I think Rick Barnes gets it done, and I think Tennessee wins it all. How we thinking about that? Feeling good, boys?
I love it. I love that Tennessee pick. I'm really high on them. I could see them beating Purdue. I could see them going all the way, just like you have them. That's a very talented team. And, Ziegler being healthy, he was out for last year's tournament. He's huge on the defensive end. And then, like I said earlier, Josiah Jordan-James is a mid-range master defensive whiz, and Dalton Connect is just elite, scorer and defender and can do whatever they need him to do.
Yeah, I like those picks. I hope Baylor goes that far. But from what I've seen from them, as much as I love their defense, their offense just doesn't seem like it's at the level to win a championship for me.
Fair.
They're just a team. Like, when I watch them play, they'll miss open shots, which just isn't like a championship level type team.
Yeah.
So I'd love to see it happen, but I would have a hard time seeing them go all the way to the championship.
Yeah.
It's already a little bit of a stretch with me putting them in the Final Four. I think I'm a little biased because I love their defense so much.
Yeah.
But they gotta be able to hit their shots for sure.
Yeah, UConn's so tough to pick against. I was really trying to find a team that could confuse them and change it up on them. And Baylor was that team to me. I really can't see them repeating because it's so hard in college basketball to repeat. When Asher and I did our little college basketball preview before the tournament, we were talking about if they could repeat, and they check every box too. But, I just really think it's so hard to do. And finding a team that just changes it up on you can be that difference maker. And that's kind of why I went with Baylor, just over them. But I think that would be a great game if it were to happen. And I think your UConn pick is totally on par because they're the best team in college basketball. But the best team doesn't always win in college basketball. So
yeah, I saw a stat the other day. The last 6 national champions didn't make it out of the round of 32. So we'll see what happens. But
That's crazy. That's
yeah.
crazy. Yeah, well, it's going to be awesome. It's going to be awesome. I'm super pumped for this. Thank you guys so much for joining the show. This has been a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys coming on. This has been fun.
Appreciate you having us. Yeah.
Yeah, no, this has been awesome. Big thank you to Drew Comer and Jonah Cerone. This has been a lot of fun, and we'll be back at you guys next time. Peace.